Welcome back to AF Tales. Today's story is about a man who worked 2 jobs to fund a wedding, then got told he was too dependent and ordered to move out while still paying for everything. As you listen, think about where you would draw the line when love starts feeling like control. My fiancé said, "You are too dependent on me." I replied, "Watch me leave." Then I pulled the $15K wedding savings, started lease removal, documented every call, and grabbed my tools with a witness as the truth about Vive got violent. I'm still 28. I work construction in Toronto, and for a long time I thought my biggest problem was planning a wedding while juggling 2 jobs. Turns out my biggest problem was paying for my own emotional abuse and calling it love. My fiancée is Vive. She's 28. We've been together 6 years and engaged for 8 months. She works part-time retail at a boutique in Yorkville, around 20 hours a week. I work full-time construction and take weekend roofing jobs to cover rent, groceries, and wedding expenses. We were supposed to get married next spring. We already put down deposits on the venue and catering. I had been saving for months, about $15,000 plus my Christmas bonus from last year. I told myself it was for our future. Now I look back and realize it was also buying my silence. Vive had these contradictory rules that made it impossible to do anything right. She wanted me to be more social. She'd say I was isolated and boring. But if I made plans with my buddy Jake from work, she would text me constantly asking when I was coming home, saying I was abandoning her for random people. She wanted me off my phone during quality time, which sounded fair. Except she would be on her phone the entire time we were watching shows, scrolling Instagram, texting her friends, half laughing at things I couldn't see while I stared at the TV like a background character. She wanted me to work out more, said I was getting soft since we got engaged. So I joined a gym and started going 3 times a week after work. Then she complained I was never home and accused me of trying to look good for other people. That's the part that messes with your head. You change to meet the standard and the standard moves. It's like chasing a finish line that keeps walking away. She also wanted me to try harder with her family. I got along great with her brother Sebastian. We played Xbox, grabbed beers, normal stuff. Her parents were polite but distant. I never knew what try harder meant with them. I'd helped her dad move furniture. I spent a Saturday painting their fence. We had normal conversations the whole time. But every time Vive wanted to be upset, her family became another reason. Last weekend, everything came to a head. We went to her friend's birthday party at an overpriced bar downtown. Vive had about 6 drinks and slipped into that mean drunk personality I'd been seeing more and more lately. She didn't get loud. She got sharp, like every sentence was a little blade. On the way home in the Uber, she started listing everything wrong with me. "You don't get along with any of my friends," she said. "They think you're weird and antisocial." I was sitting there thinking, what friends? The only people I'd met more than once were Sarah and Madison, and they'd always been friendly. "You don't even try with my family," she continued. "My dad thinks you're lazy." Lazy. I work 2 jobs, I pay the bills. I handle groceries and apartment maintenance. I show up for everyone and still get called lazy. Then she said the line that really twisted my brain. "You are too dependent on me," she said, leaning against the car window. "Maybe you should leave and find someone who appreciates you more." Dependent. That word hit me like a joke I didn't understand. How exactly was I dependent on her? I was funding both of our lives. I was saving for the wedding. I was the one keeping the lights on. I assumed she was drunk and saying stupid things, but when we got home she didn't drop it. "I'm serious," Vive said. "You should move out for a while, figure out who you are without me." "Vive, what are you talking about?" I said. "We're engaged. We're getting married in 5 months." "Maybe we need space," she said, like she was talking about redecorating, "to see if this is really what we want." Then it became clear what she actually meant. She wanted me to move out of our apartment but still pay my half of the rent while living somewhere else. Still pay for the wedding. Still work 2 jobs to fund a life I wasn't allowed to participate in. When I asked how I was supposed to do that, she shrugged and said, "That's your problem to figure out. That's not a conversation. That's an order." For the next 3 days, I slept on the couch while she acted like everything was normal. She made coffee for herself in the morning. Not me. She watched shows I liked while I was at work, then switched to something else when I came home, like she wanted the comfort of my presence without giving me any warmth. Yesterday she asked casually, "So when are you moving out?" Like it was already decided. When I said I didn't have money for a deposit on a new place while paying wedding expenses, she got angry. "See," she said, "this is what I mean. You can't solve problems without making them my responsibility." I was sitting there thinking, I didn't create this problem. You did. At 200 a.m. that night, I couldn't sleep on that couch. I kept replaying everything, trying to figure out when loving someone became evidence of my inadequacy. I started questioning my own reality. Maybe I really am too boring, too dependent. Too whatever she says I am. That's the trap. After enough criticism, you start speaking to yourself in their voice. My brother Marcus had been warning me for a while. He kept saying, "This isn't how healthy relationships work." I finally listened. On Monday morning, I called in sick because I couldn't face another day of pretending everything was fine. Marcus picked me up around 1,000 and took me to Tim Hortons. I told him everything. The rules, the accusations, the moving out while still paying, the way she kept flipping everything onto me. He listened without interrupting, then he leaned forward and said, "Bro, this isn't relationship problems. This is systematic abuse." I remember staring at my coffee like it was going to explain something. Marcus pulled out his phone and showed me a checklist he found online. Financial abuse, emotional manipulation, isolation tactics, gaslighting, moving standards. We were checking boxes like it was a game. "Look at this pattern," Marcus said. "She creates impossible standards, then punishes you for failing to meet them. You can't be social enough and home enough and independent enough and dependent enough. The point isn't for you to succeed. It's for you to constantly fail and apologize." That sentence landed hard because it made everything make sense. The pressure, the confusion, the way I never felt like I could relax because the rules changed daily. That afternoon, Marcus drove me to the bank. I had a separate savings account for the wedding, my money, my work, about $15,000 total. "This is your money," Marcus said. "You earned it working 2 jobs while she drinks and criticizes you. Don't let the financial abuse continue." So I withdrew everything. Every penny I had saved for our wedding, our honeymoon, our future together. When Vive got home from her shift, which was probably a few hours folding clothes, she immediately noticed something was off. "Why do you look guilty?" she asked. "What did you do?" I didn't argue. I didn't explain in circles, I just said it straight. I took my wedding savings back. Her face went through 5 expressions in 2 seconds: confusion, anger, panic, then rage. "You did what?" she shouted. "I withdrew the money I saved," I said. "It's my money from my jobs." "That is our money," she screamed. "For our wedding. You can't just steal money from our future." "It's my contribution to a wedding you told me to leave," I said. "If you want space to think, you can think without my financial support." The next 3 hours were chaos. She called me a thief, said I was sabotaging our relationship, accused my family of manipulating me. Then she started calling everyone she could think of. Her dad called me around 11 p.m. "Stellan, you need to do the right thing and give Vivienne that money," he said. "She is hysterical." "Sir," I said, "it's money I earned and saved. I took back my contribution to a wedding she told me to walk away from." "You're being childish," he said. "Real men don't abandon their responsibilities to their fiancée." That line made my stomach twist, because it wasn't about being a real man. It was about being a useful one. Then the harassment started. Vive called my mom 36 times between midnight and 600 a.m. My mom is 64. She lost my dad in June. She's dealing with grief and her own health issues. She didn't need drunk calls in the middle of the night from someone demanding money. Vive left voicemails calling my mom a bad mother, saying she raised a thief and a liar. The next morning my mom called me crying, saying, "Did I raise you wrong?" That was the moment something snapped in me. Someone who loves you does not terrorize your grieving mother to control you. This wasn't wedding stress. This wasn't a rough patch. This was a person trying to punish me for stepping out of line. My sister Cordelia got involved after that. She's a social worker. She sees abuse up close for a living, and she wasn't going to let our family get targeted. On Wednesday morning, Cordelia filed a harassment report with Toronto police. The officer taking the statement told her repeated unwanted calls, especially targeting a vulnerable elderly person, could qualify for criminal harassment charges. "Your fiancée is escalating because she's lost control," the officer said. "This behavior typically gets worse before it gets better." Meanwhile, I was still technically on the lease for the apartment, still legally responsible for rent and utilities. Cordelia helped me contact property management to request lease removal. The leasing agent told us we'd need documentation to approve early termination. We had documentation now. Police report numbers, call logs, voicemails. On Friday, I arranged to collect my belongings while Vive was supposedly at work. Cordelia came with me as a witness and for safety. The plan was simple. In and out in 30 minutes, clothes, tools, personal items, gone. Except Vive wasn't at work. She was sitting on the couch with a glass of wine at 2:00 p.m. on a Friday like she'd been waiting. "So you brought backup," she said, staring at my sister. "Couldn't face me yourself?" "I'm just here to collect my things," I said, and I headed toward the bedroom. "Those aren't your things," Vive snapped. "You abandoned this relationship. You abandoned this apartment. Everything here belongs to me now." Cordelia stepped forward. "Ma'am, he's taking personal belongings and tools he needs for work." Vive turned on her like a switch flipped. "I don't remember talking to you," she said. "This is between me and my fiancé." "Ex-fiancé," I said from the bedroom, stuffing my work boots and tool belt into a bag. That word changed the air. Then something crashed in the living room. I heard Cordelia yell. I ran out and saw Vive had thrown our framed engagement photo at the wall. Glass was everywhere. Vive was advancing toward my sister, eyes wild. "Get out of my apartment," she screamed. "Both of you, get out." "We are leaving," Cordelia said calmly, backing toward the door. "Stell, grab what you can and let's go." As we moved toward the exit, Vive shoved past me and slapped Cordelia across the face hard enough to leave a red mark, hard enough that my sister stumbled back. "Don't you ever come back here," Vive hissed. That was the moment it stopped being emotional. It became physical. Cordelia called 911 immediately. 20 minutes later, 2 officers were in the apartment taking statements and photographing Cordelia's bruised cheek. "We can arrest her now for assault," one officer said. "Do you want to press charges?" Cordelia didn't hesitate. "Absolutely. She has been harassing our elderly mother and now physically attacking family members." Vive was arrested that evening, charged with harassment and assault. She spent the night in jail and was released Saturday morning under conditions not to contact me or my family. On Sunday morning, my mom received a delivery of flowers with a card. "I am so sorry for everything. Miranda." It was from Vive's mother. Miranda had no idea what was happening until the arrest. Vive had been telling her I stole wedding money and abandoned her for no reason. When Miranda learned the truth through the police report and the charges, she was horrified. She called my mom, apologized, and said, "That is not how I raised my daughter." I didn't know what to do with that. It was strange hearing a parent take accountability when their child refused to. The next 6 months were a blur. The legal process moved slowly, but the immediate aftermath happened fast. Property management approved my lease removal within 2 days once they saw the police reports. Vive had to find a roommate or move out because she couldn't afford the rent alone on part-time retail wages. Vive's father tried to pressure us into dropping everything. He called our lawyer, called family members, demanded we be reasonable. But we weren't dropping anything. My mom deserved justice for those 36 calls. Cordelia deserved justice for getting slapped while helping me leave an abusive situation. And honestly, the next guy who dates Vive deserves to know that harassment and assault are crimes, not relationship bumps. Vive violated the no-contact order twice, which added more charges. Each time it was the same pattern. She acted like consequences were something that happened to other people. Miranda, meanwhile, stayed respectful. She checked on my mom's health. She offered to cover therapy costs if needed. She sent flowers more than once. "I don't know what happened to my daughter," she told me during one call. "This isn't the person I thought I raised." As weird as it sounds, the legal stuff started to feel secondary compared to what mattered most, my family healing. My mom was already struggling before all this. Losing my dad in June was devastating, and this harassment delayed her grief counseling by months. We finally got her into proper support in September. We started family therapy, me, Marcus, Cordelia, and Mom. We processed Dad's death and what my relationship with Vive did to me. One day in therapy, my mom looked at me and said, "Your father would have been proud of how you protected the family." Then she told me something that hit harder than anything Vive ever said. "Your dad had concerns about Vive for years," Mom admitted. "He noticed the controlling behavior. The imbalance, how you seemed smaller and more stressed whenever she was around, but he never wanted to interfere." I sat there realizing I could have saved myself years if I had listened sooner. Work became my anchor. I threw myself into overtime projects, picked up extra weekend jobs, paid off the last of the wedding deposits that couldn't be refunded. It was almost funny how much money I had once I stopped funding someone else's lifestyle. I built an emergency fund. I even started helping with my mom's medical expenses. The guys at work noticed the difference. My foreman Jake told me, "You seem more confident lately, more willing to speak up." Turns out when you're not constantly second-guessing yourself or walking on eggshells, you have energy for real life. In November, Sebastian reached out, Vive's brother. He said he'd been getting a very different story about the breakup and it never added up. "She told us you stole wedding money and abandoned her for your family," he said. "But that never made sense knowing you." I told him everything. The impossible standards, the financial abuse, the harassment, the assault, the arrest. He went quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I've been seeing some of that behavior in her other relationships. I thought it was just drama. Maybe it's a pattern." We still game occasionally. He's trying to stay connected to his sister without enabling her, and I respect that. But I'm not stepping back into that world. As for dating, I have zero interest right now. My energy goes to family recovery, career, and therapy. My therapist told me something I didn't want to hear but needed. "You're not ready to date until you understand why you accepted that treatment for so long," she said. "What you called love was trauma bonding." She was right. I spent 6 years believing control and criticism were proof someone cared. I thought if I worked harder, paid more, stayed calmer, I could finally earn peace. That's not love. That's survival. 6 months ago, Vive told me I was too dependent on her while I funded her entire lifestyle. Today, I'm financially stable, emotionally grounded, and learning what real boundaries look like. The criminal case is still ongoing. Vive's father still tries to bully his way out of reality, but we're not moving. Because sometimes the best thing you can do is stop paying for your own mistreatment and start investing in relationships that don't require you to disappear. Lesson 1. If someone sets rules you can never meet, the point is not improvement. The point is control. Lesson 2. Financial abuse can look like entitlement, guilt, and pressure disguised as responsibility. Lesson 3. Love does not punish you for having limits. Love does not demand you pay to be mistreated. Lesson 4. When someone targets your family to control you, that is escalation, not a misunderstanding. Lesson 5. Leaving is not quitting. Sometimes leaving is the first time you choose yourself. What would you have done the moment she told you to move out but keep paying for everything? And if you've ever been in a relationship where the rules kept changing, how did you finally realize it wasn't your job to keep up?